When Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, verse number 23, he said, "I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." That phrase, "I never knew you," it doesn't mean he's going to say that you're a stranger to me. I don't know who you are. We've never been introduced. It means that he's going to be saying, I have no intimate personal relationship with you. See, on Judgment Day, if Jesus Christ says, "I never knew you," he will actually be saying, you and I, never had a relationship of any kind. There was no bond whatsoever. I don't know you. Now, you may think you know me, and it will be that way. There'll be many, most will be saying, "Lord, Lord." In the scriptures, whenever you see the word, know or knew or whatever, like when Adam knew his wife and then they had children, it's talking about a deep personal relationship, an intimate relationship. And there may be claims of interest in Christ by many. They may talk of him as Lord. Someone may even exhibit personal fervency and devotion in public gatherings. We see that a lot. People running in circles, and I'm not making fun, but we see emotional outbursts and things of that nature. Some may be able to preach or even teach, as I said in the last video, I believe it was. So this includes those who claim to be pastors, prophets, teachers. Some may claim to be able to cast out demons, and they will on that day. They may claim, and you may even see some perform miracles. You might see that. And there's always going to be these people, who make these claims, who appear to be something, but apart from the Messiah, they are nothing. They're false. They're frauds. They're empty. They're clouds without rain. You remember over there, and I believe it was John 15, he said, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." I am the vine, you are the branches. When I grow tomato plants, and I take care of them, I cultivate them, and I go through and I look at them and I see what I call suckers on them. They are the branches on the vine, the tomato vine, that don't produce. You know what I do with them? I pluck them off and I throw them down on the ground, and they're trampled by me. I just throw them in the road. Jesus, what does he do with them that are cut off? He piles them up, and he's going to throw them in the fire. Right? So there's going to be people that claim to be something, but apart from him, they're nothing. You remember over there in Matthew 7, where he talks about the narrow gate and the wide gate. These that claim "Lord, Lord" out of their mouth, they didn't enter by the narrow gate. They chose the wide gate with the wide path that leads to destruction. They didn't come by the narrow gate, knowing their sin. See, those who enter the narrow gate, they know their sin. They didn't come in repenting of their sin when they entered that wide gate. They didn't come in hungering and thirsting for his righteousness. They didn't come in bankrupt and poor, knowing that they had no righteousness. They have nothing good to offer, stripped bare. No, they come in full of themselves with all their baggage into the wide gate that leads to destruction. But to enter in the way that I was talking about, knowing your sin, repenting of your sin, beating your chest and saying, have mercy on me, a sinner. This is the way that is the narrow and small and difficult, hard to find gate. And few find it. Reason? Well, many reasons. Pride. Pride blinds you and you can't see. Self-worship. It corrupts. To deny oneself is very, very difficult. And what is going to be hard to think about? I know. But what's going to be hard to think is that there are those that will give testimony to a life of faith and good works. That call Yeshua Messiah, Lord, Lord. And they will be commanded to leave on that great and terrible day. Just saying Jesus is Lord from your lips isn't enough. Not enough. Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 15, he says, beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Grapes are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor figs from thistles, are they? So every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad trees bear bad fruit. These false teachers and false prophets, you'll know them by their fruit. And most people, or some people believe, and I'm not saying there's no truth to this, but they believe that the fruit is their actions. Well, I know a lot, in my mind anyway, that are false teachers and false prophets. And they do good things. They feed the hungry. They do many huge philanthropical, whatever the word is. They are philanthropists and build buildings for people and have orphanages and all kinds of good works. So you can't tell them by their works. They have good works. How do you know them? Well, I believe he's talking about the fruit that they bear, that they feed people. The fruit of their lips. It's what they feed the people. Grapes and figs is what they're supposed to be feeding, but they're not feeding those things. They're feeding thorns and thistles. Bad, bad fruit. And so what do these false prophets produce as the fruit of their life? Bad fruit. And what happens to them that produce the bad fruit? They're cut down and thrown into the fire, like the suckers off the tomato plants. And verse 21, in that chapter, Jesus then says about them and those that follow them and keep their ways, the false teachers' ways. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father, who is in heaven, will enter. Do your own homework and think about these things. Take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt.